Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, BYU and Texas Tech, an absolutely massive game for the Big 12 title race. BYU, of course, still undefeated on the season. Texas Tech with just one loss, and the Red Raiders are heavy favorites in this game. Danny, you think that's fair?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think Texas Tech is playing as good as we've seen them. I thought it was a really impressive game they had this weekend on the road at Kansas State. I thought that was potentially an upset spot for them. I think the defense is playing good. A healthy Baron Morton makes a world of difference. Yeah, I do think that. And as much as I have made the case for BYU, I mean, this is easily their biggest challenge. I think even more impressive. A bigger challenge than even Utah was in the Holy War. That game was at home, right? Yeah. That was in their backyard in Provo.
Yeah. What are we looking at?
It's the same analysis every time with Texas Tech. Can you block them?
Yep.
Like
literally the first sentence on my notes.
We need to get this video at 8 minutes. But like really within the first minute, we're going no. Can you block Texas Tech? Like Kansas State did a lot of stuff last week. They played hard. I thought they were creative in some ways. But down the stretch, when they had to have it, when they had to get those crucial third downs, when they had to find a way to score in the red zone, can you block them? Because like Texas Tech paid up for real, defensive linemen who have a shot to be drafted. And you just don't see that in this league. It's like we talked about this Kansas State last week. They hadn't seen anybody who could do that. It's the same deal. Now, Utah is not as good on the D-line this year as they typically are, and they did beat Utah, but it's a different conversation, right? Like, can you block them? I don't know, but like that is what we're going to find out.
The first, in my notes, the first thing I have written is, can BYU block Tech? That's the question every Big 12 team has to answer. And it's true. I mean, that's why you're looking at the spread saying, wow, 10.5. How the hell is it 10.5? BYU's undefeated and ranked ahead of them. That's why. Because there's just a talent gap between Texas Tech's defensive front than everybody else in the Big 12. And BYU's offensive line has played well this year. They're tough. They're physical. They look like a BYU offensive line. But again, yeah, Utah's probably the best defensive front they have seen. They have not looked great all year. Like they've struggled sometimes, I feel like, in pass protection against like Arizona in particular. Going back and watching that game, I was kind of surprised by how overwhelmed BYU's offensive line looked at times. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to see like Bear Bachmeier's sack avoidance, because when you look at the stats and look at all the numbers that kind of give you the clues, he's slightly above average in all of them, but the eye test kind of makes you wonder. And I do think this is going to be one of those things where when he's facing a very, very different kind of pass rush this week, one that might be able to get pressure on him consistently, do some of the habits he has that he's been able to get away with against other teams come back to bite him in this game and put BYU behind the chains and in bad spots. And if he can avoid that, I think BYU has a shot to, pull off the upset here. If he doesn't, I think this one could get lopsided.
So, I mean, should we approach this like if they can block them, then what?
Then they're going to have explosives.
I think Texas Tech's offense will stall out from time to time.
It does.
That's a good point. The last 3 games, Texas Tech's offense.
Yeah. That's one thing I've got is like, look, when you look at sort of the B+ areas or the B graded areas of each of these teams' games, you look at Texas Tech offensively, and it can, they'll spin their wheels for a little bit, especially in the run game. So for BYU, you just hope this is lower scoring. You understand that you're probably, if you can't run the ball, you're in trouble. And it's just going to be a long, painful, eventual road loss. But if you can get a little bit going in the running game, like Tom, as you mentioned, BYU's passing attack isn't particularly intimidating, And so 3rd and long with a less than intimidating passing attack against one of the best pass rush groups in the entire country, 3rd and 8+ is a losing proposition for the BYU offense. But if you can just have some decent drives, play some field position, live to see another day, I think BYU hopes that their defense can hold up and just make this low scoring enough that you've just got a chance. And that's kind of where I'm approaching this in terms of, what is the path that this doesn't end up being? Texas Tech runaway. It's BYU doing some of the things that they've done all season long, winning at the margins, being able to play, do the small stuff well, and just giving themselves a shot late.
You mentioned something I do think is important and worth discussing, though. It's like Texas Tech's offense has not been great lately. And it's interesting to know, and we're going to maybe get a better idea, is because they've been doing the shuffle back and forth between Morton and Hammond because of injuries. And now Hammond's gone, so Morton's back. Has that just been a result of the inconsistency of who's playing quarterback, or has the offense just kind of stalled out? Because their last 3 games, they're at 2.1 points per drive, negative 0.04 EPA per play, and a 39.3 success rate. I know they've scored 40 plus in 2 of them, although one of them was against Oklahoma State, but it hasn't been efficient as much as they've just had the ball a bunch.
And they'll pop an explosive.
Mm-hmm.
The run game, it'll just be not much, 45, not much. And the fact that you can pop those explosives obviously is the advantage of that's how we're able to score 40 plus points in these games. But if you're BYU, you think hey, if we can win enough of these downs and limit those huge long plays, then we might be able to cause some problems for Texas Tech.
Both of these teams are really good with turnovers, creating them, and also minimizing what you do. I think it is worthy to note that in Texas Tech's loss, remember Barry Morton before he left the game had 2 interceptions. We really haven't seen Bear Bachmeier struggle that much with turning the ball over. Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker for Texas Tech, who is not getting enough credit, has 7 forced fumbles, including 2 last week against Kansas State. That's one thing I would be preaching to Bear Bachmeier this week, as much as he runs the ball, and every ball carrier is secure the football. Turnovers, teams thrive on, especially when you're playing on the road. I think that's going to be a priority in this game, is kind of ball security, turnover battle. Who wins that? By the way, you guys know about Jacob Rodriguez's wife, right? She flies a Black Hawk helicopter.
I did hear that on the broadcast.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's badass.
She's a badass.
And that's the second most badass person in your house. Happens to be this.
I don't know. It might be her.
That's what I'm saying. Jacob is the second most badass person in the house.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, is it's not just Romello Height and David Bailey. The interior of the defensive line still has dudes. Jacob Rodriguez at the linebacker position. They've got other linebackers that are really impressive. This whole Texas Tech defense, well constructed. They play nasty. It is a recipe that is clearly worked here in 2025. If Joey McGuire can continue to match funds and resources to this kind of roster building technique, Texas Tech will be a Big 12 title contender for a long time. Anything else here before we go to Como?
How do they handle the blitz packages? I do think BYU, they're going to go play their game defensively, and they do a really good job of bringing a lot of different blitz looks. Can they find a way to get those hits on Morton that rattle him, that make him get some turnovers going on? That to me is really pretty important here. I don't know if they can just get home with pass rush. They have a lot of really nice pieces. I think 7 who can bring the blitz. Coverage wise, I don't know that BYU has faced a lot of really good passing offenses this year, right? So, Iowa State is down at receiver a little bit. Utah is as well. Arizona is okay. East Carolina, for a G5, is okay. And I don't know that Texas Tech has amazing receivers, but this is probably the best passing offense that they've seen, right? Unless I'm definitely not Colorado. So there's a lot of what ifs here that we don't know. But really, it's going to be, could Texas Tech continue to get home with 4 so they can protect their back 7 and prevent explosives? And, on the flip side, can BYU get home with those blitzes?
Fafita hit a couple deep passes in that. I remember you were talking about that Arizona game earlier, Tom. That was a spot where BYU was hanging on a lot with that one.